Hi everybody, this is Megan Garza with Megan Garza Wellness. I'm a nutritional therapy practitioner, health coach, and yoga instructor, and you're listening to the Restoring Balance podcast. More women than ever are now dealing with digestive, hormonal, and skin issues and are not finding satisfactory answers or results. On this show, I teach you how to implement holistic lifestyle, dietary, and mindset strategies to help you get smooth digestion and balanced hormones to reclaim your health, feel confident about your decisions, and to finally live life on your terms. Hello everybody, this is episode 12, and the title of today's episode is Sleep and its Impact on Digestion. Before we get started, if you're a fan of the show, this is just a reminder of how you can support the podcast by giving it a 5-star review on Spotify Podcasts, which helps the algorithm get my show to other listeners who would benefit from it just like you. So without further ado, let's dive in. We're going to go over the sleep physiology, so why it's important, the functions of sleep, also briefly touching on the circadian rhythm and specific organ detoxification. Then we're going to transition to the impact of sleep on the GI system, also gastrointestinal conditions that can affect sleep, the negative feedback loop between those two, and lastly, how to avoid stomach problems during sleep hygiene, so that way you can get the best sleep ever, and what normal sleep looks like. For a long time, it definitely seems like sleep has been overlooked, especially in our hustle culture. There definitely doesn't seem to be a lot of slowing down, but fortunately in the holistic wellness space, it seems like more people are starting to pick up on the fact that sleep is important, and the physiology of sleep is extra important. So actually knowing why sleep is important and what it does is just as important as getting sleep itself. So sleep is characterized by changes in levels of consciousness, unresponsiveness to the surrounding environment, and inactivity of voluntary muscles. So this is really important to make sure that we don't have control over our bodies physically when we are sleeping, because if we are acting out our dreams, we could hurt ourselves or other people. So this is a really great thing why our muscles are inactive, so that way we're not flailing around and injuring ourselves. Sleep is also physically and psychologically restorative to the mind and the body. It's divided into REM and non-REM sleep, with non-REM making up around 75 to 80% of total sleep time, and REM consisting of the remaining 20 to 25%. REM is where dreaming, learning, and memory consolidation occurs, and during non-REM sleep, the body builds bone, muscle, strengthens the immune system, and repairs and regrows tissue. So if you're not sleeping, these things are not going to happen. You're going to get sick more often. Your bones are not going to rebuild themselves if you have a fracture. Muscle recovery is going to be reduced, and regrowing and repairing tissue is going to be inhibited. So getting sleep, getting high quality sleep, is really vital for improving your overall health, especially your GI tract, which I will get onto in just a moment. Now onto the circadian rhythm. So there are two processes of the circadian rhythm. So one that promotes wakefulness and the other that promotes sleep. They both do control the timing and the duration of sleep. So according to cancer.gov, the circadian rhythm is the natural cycle of physical, mental, and behavior changes that the body goes through in a 24-hour cycle. Circadian rhythms are mostly affected by light and darkness and are controlled by a small area in the middle of the brain. They can affect sleep, body temperature, hormones, appetite, and other body functions. So the circadian rhythm really extends beyond just sleep. There's a lot more physiological processes that the circadian rhythm impacts. Also, a really interesting thing to note is the fact that people have voluntarily gone into caves or dark rooms with access to candles and were able to maintain a normal sleep and wake cycle because of their circadian rhythm. And this is all done without clocks or any indicators of what time it was. So they just went off of what their cues were of when they were tired and when they wanted to wake up. So this is not something that was done for long periods of time. If I remember correctly, it was just over the course of a week or two. And kind of the same thing goes with plants. So if you leave a plant in a dark room, it will open and close the leaves according to its own circadian rhythm. Now, the impact that the circadian rhythm has on digestion and the microbiome. So first thing to be said is that food is to be digested at specific times. So midnight snacking can definitely lead to digestive problems and improperly digested food. So this can leave you with a lot of gas, bloating, and just uncomfortable feelings of indigestion. So this is why eating on a schedule will really help the body anticipate when it's time to digest and when it's time to rest. So for example, eating your first meal at 8 a.m., then your next meal at 1 p.m., and then lastly, the last meal at 6 p.m. Because nighttime is when the gut is supposed to be repaired. So if random eating habits occur frequently, and this is something that is made into a lifelong habit or even a long-term habit, your conditions like GERD, indigestion, irritable bowel movements, and constipation can occur. This is why it's vital to be on a schedule of eating and not just be snacking throughout the day or to be snacking late into the night. Also, normal gut bacteria levels will change, which can lead to leaky gut, which changes the gut microbiome for the worse. This occurs when you are snacking at random times and eating late into the night. That is when the microbiome will change. Another thing to think about is jet lag or staying up late, having fun with friends, or even just staying up late in general, studying for an exam or something along those lines. Think about how your digestion feels the next day. Do you have good digestion? Do you feel great? I mean, if you're like most people, you probably are going to be dealing with acid reflux and things like constipation. So this is why it is super, super, super important to go to bed at a regular time, which that is part of the sleep hygiene. An excellent book that goes over the circadian rhythm in great depth is called The Circadian Code by Sachin Panda. He details all kinds of incredible findings and research in his book, and if you want to learn more about the circadian rhythm, I would highly recommend his book. I will link it in the show notes because it is foundational to learning how the circadian rhythm works. And now on to the importance of quality sleep and the risk of sleep deprivation. So the importance of quality sleep includes cellular repair, lower stress levels, improved memory and learning, maintaining your immune system, and supporting growth and development. So this is just a list of a few of the things that quality sleep will really help your body with. And then as far as the risks of sleep deprivation, so that includes the increased risk of stroke, the higher anxiety that you're going to get, impaired cognition, increased risk of depression, because when you don't sleep well, it disrupts the neurotransmitters to the brain, which is involved in mood regulation. Also, lack of sleep can increase the risk of heart disease because blood pressure decreases with sleep. And there's also a strong association between sleep disturbances and gastrointestinal diseases. So gastrointestinal diseases include gastroesophageal reflux disease, or GERD, inflammatory bowel disease, liver disorders, and colorectal cancer. And unfortunately, sleep disorders affect 50 to 70 million Americans, and those are just the ones who report it. I'm sure there are plenty of other people who do not report their sleep disorders because they have just normalized it and they think that there's nothing wrong with their sleep patterns, or they think everyone should just be living like this and it's nothing to be concerned about. But it absolutely is, because your sleep is a foundational piece of your overall health and well-being. Now we're going to get into the nitty-gritty of GI issues and sleep. So sleep deprivation and gastrointestinal issues has a wide array of problems that it can cause. So starting with the nervous system is the fact that the brain and the gastrointestinal system are connected in a way that's vital to regulating the digestive tract and the immune system in the gut. So this gut-brain axis involves the immune system activation, intestinal permeability, and enteroendocrine signaling. Sleep disturbances can be responsible for physiological changes in the GI tract, meaning that any sleep disturbances that you have can be responsible for any problems that you're having with your gastrointestinal tract. The migrating motor complex, think of this like a housekeeper for your gut. So it sweeps undigested material through the digestive tract, and it is a regular part of a cycle that occurs between eating when you are fasting. So between breakfast and lunch and dinner, the migrating motor complex acts as a housekeeper to sweep up all of that undigested material. The waves of this electrical activity in the GI tract are also controlled by the enteric nervous system, which slows down during sleep. So making sure that your body has adequate time to not be doing anything. So that includes sleeping and not be digesting. The immune system is also positively impacted with sleep. So this supports and allows cytokines to modulate and control inflammation. Cytokines are signaling proteins that control inflammation and allow your immune system to defend against invaders like germs that'll make you sick. However, too many cytokines can actually increase inflammation. So cytokine release changes can result in more pro-inflammatory cytokines that are present in gastrointestinal disorders. And unfortunately, a lack of sleep will disrupt the normal release of cytokines, which can worsen gastrointestinal disorders. And another interesting fact is that sleep disturbances have been reported in up to 79% of people diagnosed with GERD. In a study of 6,500 participants in Norway found that patients with insomnia had a 3-time increased risk of GERD symptoms than those with no sleep complaints. IBS patients can also have increased nocturnal autonomic arousal, which can result in poor sleep. Poor sleep can also affect IBS symptoms, increasing abdominal pain, anxiety, and fatigue. So this is the negative feedback loop that I was speaking about of poor sleep causing worsening symptoms and worsening symptoms causing poor sleep. So now, what do you do about all this stuff? If you have IBS and you have bad symptoms that make it so that way you're unable to sleep, and if you're unable to sleep and that's causing worsening symptoms, what do you do? Where do you go from here? So there are some really easy things that you can do to avoid stomach problems during sleep. So first would be to eat on a regular schedule. As I mentioned before, not snacking super late into the night, not snacking throughout the day, letting your gut and the migrating motor complex do its job, and allowing it to have that short period of fasting and the period of fasting overnight. Also, finish dinner at least 2 or preferably 3 hours before bed, because if you're having this big meal right before bed and you're laying down, that's going to increase your risk of having acid reflux, and also it's just going to make you really uncomfortable because your body is wondering if you're supposed to be sleeping or if it's supposed to be digesting. If you know that spicy foods can cause indigestion in you, or if there's any other trigger foods, just go ahead and avoid that, because if you are eating spicy foods and you know that it's going to cause you problems, eat that in the morning or just completely eliminate it from your diet altogether. And speaking of eliminating foods, eliminating caffeine and alcohol can greatly improve your sleep quality, because these foods and these substances can interfere with the physiological and hormonal processes that are involved in sleep. Chewing your food until it's smoothie consistency is also going to do wonders for your digestion in general. But if you are not chewing your food and you're not digesting it because it's not acidic enough in your stomach to break all of that down, it is going to move lower into your GI tract, into your intestines, and there's going to be chunks of food and it's just going to ferment. It's going to cause gas, bloating, all kinds of problems that are going to make you really uncomfortable. So really just chew your food until it's smoothie consistency, somewhere around 20 to 30 chews per bite. And onto stomach acid, what I just said a moment ago, if you do not have proper stomach acid production, if your stomach acid is too low, this can actually trigger acid reflux. And this is contrary to what a lot of mainstream media is saying about this, because We're told to take PPIs like Nexium or even antacids like Tums to kind of help quote unquote remedy these issues. And all this is doing is putting a band-aid on it, because if you don't have adequate stomach acid, your food is not going to be broken down properly, and that's going to continue to lead to that undigested food in your gut, in your intestines, and it's going to cause you to be uncomfortable. So making sure that you're chewing your food, you're in a parasympathetic state when you're eating, or even taking some HCl with pepsin under the guidance of a skilled practitioner is going to work wonders. And sleep hygiene. Sleep hygiene is so important for helping you sleep better, helping you get really great results with your sleep, and just being consistent with it. So the first piece of advice I would have for sleep hygiene would be to dim your lights inside and reduce the LED light bulbs before bed. So LED light bulbs produce a lot of blue light on the spectrum. You have cooler lights and warmer lights. Blue light is a cooler light, red light is a warmer light. And what this blue light does is it's stimulating to your nervous system and it's stimulating to your body. So replacing these lights with incandescent or even just dimming them would be an okay option as well. But ideally, you would want to be using things like amber lights, salt lamps, and even red lights are super helpful, especially in the bedroom when you are getting ready to lay down and go to sleep. Having a consistent bedtime is also going to help you fall asleep and stay asleep, because if your body knows what to expect, when to expect it, it is going to follow that. So preferably don't go to bed any later than 10. Some people feel okay going to bed at 11. It's kind of dependent on the individual. There's no really like specific set schedule that every single person should be following, but that really just goes back to the whole bio-individuality of humans, which is fantastic. It's beautiful. And having a consistent bedtime is something that we've probably all been told since we were kids. Make sure you go to bed at this time. And there's really a lot of truth behind that, because you don't want to be confusing your body by going to bed at 9 o'clock one night and then 1 a.m. the next night, because your body's going to say like, hey, what is going on? Like, am I supposed to be sleeping? Am I supposed to be awake? So try to be consistent with this one. Also, making sure that you don't use your phone for 1 to 2 hours before bed, or just any screens at all. Or if you do want to use your phone, you can wear blue light blocking glasses and have a blue light filter on your device. There's a great app called Twilight on Androids, and it is fantastic for blocking out blue light. The proper sleep environment is going to make it or break it as well with your sleep habits, because if you are having bright lights in your room or a lot of sound, or if it's too hot or your bedding is itchy and uncomfortable, you're not going to sleep well. So make sure that the environment is sound free. If you feel comfortable wearing earplugs, you can do that. Turning off every light, even if it's light from an LED or an alarm clock or something small, that can definitely trigger an arousal response in some sensitive individuals. And just have it at a comfortable temperature, preferably below 72 degrees, somewhere around 68 to 72. And having bedding that is comfortable and breathable. So maybe having a cotton sheet and then a light comforter on top to kind of keep you warm but not sweaty, and just kind of playing around with that and experimenting around. Also, if you're a mouth breather, you can consider using mouth tape, such as medical tape or Somnifix. So if you're breathing in and out through your mouth, you're not getting the proper amount of oxygen into your body, and it's going to potentially cause headaches in the morning, and you're just not going to feel like you got a great night's rest. Some other things that you can do is getting outside within 20 to 30 minutes of waking up, getting some sunshine in your eyes for 5 or 10 minutes, and also getting a minimum of 30 minutes of sunlight during the day, because this is going to signal to your body that now is the time to be alert, and it's going to help you transition more into that sleep phase later in the day. If you're outside, you get some movement in during the day, that's great. That's a huge bonus. So if you're just sitting down all day at your job and you're not moving, then you're probably not going to feel tired at the end of the day, because all that energy needs to be burned. If you have insomnia and you're waking up in the middle of the night, you can't fall asleep, and within half an hour, get up and sit on the couch. So if it's dark out where you live, you can look out the window. So don't turn on any super bright lights. So no playing on the phone, don't read a book, because if you're doing these things, it's going to signal to your brain that now is the time to be alert. Now is the time to be reading a book or playing on my phone, and it's not training yourself to think that this is the time to go to sleep. So instead, you could just practice some deep breathing or stretch or do yoga with a very dim light on, but just really avoiding playing on your phone or pacing and making yourself nervous. And I know that's easier said than done, because I have suffered from chronic insomnia for around 6 years in the past, and it's hard because you get anxious, but really just trying to stick to that routine and giving yourself some grace during that time is really going to help you stay calm and not give you so much anxiety. And if all of that is not working super great, maybe you need some extra support. Maybe your nervous system is having a hard time switching to the parasympathetic. So you could take something like valerian, lemon balm, passion flower, or holy basil, maybe in a tea form. That can be very useful. Or even something a little bit stronger like Rick Simpson cannabis oil or CBD. These can be a huge lifesaver for people who are struggling from chronic insomnia. And I would highly recommend, if you do the Rick Simpson cannabis oil, look for medical marijuana, because if you are buying recreational, you don't exactly know what you're getting, you don't know the quality, and it also raises the taxes and the prices on people who are using medical marijuana. So really just trying to stick to that medical side of it. It's regulated much better. So if you have that option, definitely give that a shot. Or if you have CBD, you can try that too, because you don't need a certificate or a license for CBD. Just make sure that you're getting it from a good source. So just give those tips a try and be consistent and patient, because this is not something that is going to happen overnight. Maybe your stomach is going to continue to bother you for a while and your sleep is going to bother you for a while, but really just trying to stick to these habits is going to be essential for improving your overall health, because if you are not sleeping, you are not going to heal. And if you are not healing, you're probably going to feel very defeated. So just sticking with these tips as much as possible and just staying optimistic, because pessimism really is a huge killer of health. Because if you have all these negative thoughts about how nothing's going to improve, then nothing is probably going to improve. And I know that that's easier said than done, especially with chronic health conditions. Trust me, I know. I completely understand. But just be patient with your body. Be loving, be gentle, and take it one day at a time. Unfortunately, since the link between GI issues and sleep issues are immense and it's being overlooked, this is something that we should definitely bring more awareness to, because it honestly doesn't seem to be a super common question asked by doctors or GI doctors. And even if it is, maybe people think that their abnormal sleep is normal because of the fact that they've just been dealing with it for so long, or it's something that quote unquote runs in the family, or maybe they just never experienced normal sleep. So they just have no idea what normal sleep is. So what is normal sleep? Normal sleep can be characterized by falling asleep soon after getting into bed, so within 30 minutes or less. If you're typically sleeping straight through the night, waking up no more than once per night, that is considered normal sleep. Sleeping the recommended amount of hours for your age group, falling back to sleep within 20 minutes if you do wake up. And lastly, feeling rested, restored, and energized when waking up in the morning. So those are all things that can characterize normal restorative sleep, and anything outside of that could warrant a investigation as to if you are not sleeping properly, why is that? Also, I'm going to link the studies that I referenced in the show notes. You can read through them. There's a lot of fascinating information, some really deep stuff on gastrointestinal disorders that are linked to sleep deprivation. So it was definitely a lot more than I could get onto this podcast today. But if you are interested, definitely read it, because there are some very fascinating studies. And lastly, just remember to take it step by step and keep learning on your wonderful journey of wellness. And that's all the time that we have for. Thank you so much for tuning into this week's episode. Today we talked about sleep physiology, the circadian rhythm, the impact of sleep on the GI system, how to avoid stomach problems during sleep, sleep hygiene, and what normal sleep looks like. You can expect new episodes every Wednesday at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Just a quick reminder again of how you can support the podcast and stay in the loop. Make sure that you sign up for my email list. That way you can be notified every time I post a new podcast episode, make any new announcements about my services and how you can work with me, and also receive weekly relevant tips for digestion and hormones so you can optimize your health. My email list is the first to be notified about all of these things. You can find the link to sign up for my emails in the show notes or head to my website at megangarzawellness.com and you can wait for the pop-up or sign up under the freebies tab. Again, I just want to thank you for listening to this week's topic. Take care, everyone, and until next time.